back in 1971, as a kid, well, first of all, I grew up in the South Bronx of New York City, and I lived in both the Bronx and in Queens, the Bronx with my mom and Queens with my dad. My passion for cars, fast ones, was like a drug. It was like almost like an addiction. And the sooner I got a fast car, I would just blow it up. And so I wound up stealing cars and stealing fast cars. And that got me in trouble. And it also got me noticed by members of organized crime. Members of organized crime, these guys had it was called George's Candy Store. And it was a bookie. The guy was a bookie. He ran numbers out of the candy store. And it was also connected to the mob. So they would always see me on Friday and Saturday night being chased by the police. Now, I had a 426 Hemi Roadrunner or a GTO, or an SS Camaro, or Corvette. I had fast cars, where the New York City police had shit cars. They had Galaxy 500 Fords with a straight six-cylinder, and a Fury 1 with a big six-cylinder, all full-size cars. And they would chase me, and I would actually play with them. I would drive them around the block a couple of times and then just go. This was all being noticed by all the bookies and mob guys that went into the store. And one day, the Brasini brothers get released from federal prison. I think they served like 15 years for bank robbery. And they got out, and they came back into the neighborhood, and they immediately started robbing banks again. Immediately. The one guy was personable. He was pretty cool, while the other guy was a psycho murderer. He was like a Neanderthal man, like, and his eyes were like looking at shark's eyes. You couldn't read him. He was just a bad guy. He was a bad guy. So the next thing I know, I start getting orders for 2 cars. Now, I used to work for body shops. When body shops got a crashed car in, they would often steal the same type of car, switch the parts, cut the car up. And so I was working for those guys. Those were also mafia-connected guys. The whole neighborhood knew me. The crazy kid with the stolen cars being chased by the police, especially every Friday and Saturday night. It was the thing to do. And they noticed me. And when these guys started stealing banks, apparently they didn't know how to steal the new cars, because they've been in for 15 years. This is 1971. So they were robbing cars from the 50s. So now they couldn't break this column. They couldn't steal cars. So I started getting orders, not for 1 car, but 2 cars. Not to be dropped off a block away from a body shop, but being delivered in all these strange areas. And my orders would have dropped it at this one at this address and drop the other one at that address. And it'd be like 5 blocks apart. So I was doing it. And I didn't really know what the cars were being used for, but I made sure I took my fingerprints off every one of them before I left, because I knew that these guys were no joke. And then apparently one day they robbed a bank, and they almost got caught because they couldn't drive. And then apparently they told all the bookies and the mob guys in the candy store what happened, and they say, hey, we know this kid. He's a stand-up kid. He's a little crazy with the cars, but if you can make it from the bank to the car, his car, you'll never get caught. The police just didn't. The police cars didn't have a chance. It's not like today where they have these high-performance cars. The New York City cops in the early 70s had no chance in hell of catching me with one of those hot rods. They had no chance. And so they pull me in the candy store, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to give me another order for a couple of cars. And they sit me down. And this was around the time that The Godfather came out. And I think all the Italian mobsters, they all love that movie. And so they sit me down in the back room. So now I'm finally in the back room of the candy store where everything goes, crooked goes on there. They gamble, they eat their Italian food. And it was like, it was like, wow, I got to go to the back. And I go to the back, I walk through the door, and they pull the curtains closed. And then they surround me. And there's those two idiots, the Brasini brothers, or whatever their name was. And they're just standing there while George starts talking to me. And I think he actually said, "We're going to make you an offer. You can't refuse." And I'm 16, 17 years old. What do these guys, what do they want from me? And they go, "Listen, whatever their first name was, I forget. They like the way you work. You always delivered when we ordered a car, and they went to pick up those two cars. They were always exactly where you do a great job. You showed them how to use the screwdriver to start it, and they really like you. And of course, we love you, kid. We get a kick out of you every Friday and Saturday night. You bring the cops around, you circle the block with the cops, and of course those guys all hated cops, and I made jerk offs out of the cops. They were, sometimes I would actually wait up for them, and just blast away. And and all that backstory is all in my book. I mean, you could, if you want to read about it, you can read about it. But I think it's much better getting these stories direct from the horse's mouth, because a lot of stuff wasn't put in the book. There's a lot of backstory. So anyway, I'm sitting in the chair, and they're surrounding me, and I'm getting a little nervous, and I'm going, do they want me to kill somebody? I'm thinking of the movie The Godfather, and I'm thinking, holy shit, what are they going to want from me? And so they say, "Listen, how do you feel about robbing banks?" And I go, "Well, I never did anything like that." He says, "Well, we don't want you to rob the bank. We want you to be a wheelman for the Brasini brothers." And they're looking at me now. Everything gets quiet. There's like 8 guys in the room, and I'm Irish. They're all Italian, and I'm like, I just felt like, okay, so. And I said, "So what exactly do you mean?" When they take off the bank, I told these guys that if they can make it from the bank to the car, they're never going to get caught. And I said, and they're filling my ego up. And any excuse I had back then to have the police chase me was exactly what I wanted to do. And so now they were doubling their money by 2 of them going into the bank, and they would take 3 and 3. They would give the one teller the note and tell them to tell the other ones, the other 2 next to them, to put the money in the bag. And so they started off getting 6 tellers, so they were like doubling their money. And so there was no problem paying me. And I never knew what they got, because I'd let them off, and they'd run out, and they had the money, and I'd get a couple grand. And a couple grand in 1971, 1970 was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. You could buy a brand new car you could buy a Corvette for $4,000. And the money was great. And it was easy for me. So we did a couple of bank robberies, and everything went smooth, and everything was going great. And I was doing my job, and I loved it, So one day, the other thing. So I was basically robbing hot rods, and the psycho guy, he didn't like the fact that there were 2 doors. He wanted his own door to be able to get out, and which made sense. So what I did was I stole the fastest 4-door car on the planet back then, which was either a Buick Electra 225 or a Wildcat 1970 with a 455, and they were just rocket ships, and they just, So I started driving them. So we're in the Buick, and we pull up to the bank. It's in July, and all 3 of us have our little beanies on, ski masks to pull down. The bank that we robbed was in Howard Beach, Queens. Or we were going to rob. We didn't rob it. So I pull up, and the bank has a long walkway from the sidewalk into the bank. And as we pull up, a guy in a suit, banker no doubt, comes walking out, and he's fast to normal pace, typical New Yorker. He comes out, and he's walking down the path, and as he's getting closer, it's registering. Hey, what are these three guys here doing with masks on in front of the bank? And he goes, whip, he does a U-turn, and he starts walking back. And I go, let's get the fuck out of here. He made us. Asshole, I put it in gear. The asshole, the psycho fucker, was in the back of the car, and he wanted no part of it. Now, already, the guy's in the bank. So by the time we got out of the car and chased it, he went in the bank, and he probably said, push the button. And that's exactly what they did. But psycho guy didn't want, and he used to always scare me because I could never read this guy. Because he had shark eyes. He had black eyes. He was like, that guy was like a fucking piece. I hated that guy. And so I put the thing in the gear, and I'm going to get off, and he puts his gun right to my fucking head. Stop, we're doing it. And now his brother goes, hey, calm down. I said, what the fuck? He's already in the bank. We don't even have a chance. Because you needed like 3 minutes, they said. You could have 3 minutes before it got to Central in the New York City Police Department, and the cars started getting dispersed. And on a bank robbery, every single sector comes. So when they push that button and then they confirm it by phone or whatever, every cop is coming to that bank. And so I stopped the car, and his brother grabs the gun. I mean, like threw up like a punch. Boom, and he grabs the gun, and I'm just waiting for it. No, and he slaps him. Boom, shut up, go, get out of here. The kid's right. And he's screaming in the background, and he keeps saying, the kid's right. And then in stereo, or I don't know what you would call it, surround sound, we hear I get to the corner, I make the turn. Nobody in the bank could tell which direction we went to. And I take off. And although I never saw any cops there, we heard them all coming. They were all coming. And they were getting louder and louder. And I took off, and I jumped the friggin' concrete thing, and I got us away. So that's what it's like, robbing a bank for the mob. So now this next story, we're on the bank robbery theme here. So now the next story is about 5 years later, and now I'm robbing a bank for the FBI. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to rob a bank for the FBI. And this one was a pretty good story too. So now, and again, this is not in chronological order. This is just, we're going to do the theme of the bank robbery things. So I'm comparing robbing a bank for the mafia and robbing a bank for the FBI. I know probably nobody ever heard of that, but trust me, it happened, and my name wound up in the paper, in the New York Times too. So I think it's October 26, 1976. And I get a call from one of my friends, because I went to prison for 4 years. I forgot to mention that. But again, it's all in that book, wherever it is over here. So I get a call from one of my friends by the name of William Hand. And he says, hey, I just got out. I have no money. I'm going to start popping some banks. Are you down with it? And of course I said, yeah, let's go. And the next thing I know, I tell my connection in the FBI, Al Garber, he worked at it in 26 Federal Plaza in Manhattan, that this guy wants to do the bank. So they go, okay, fine, let's do it. So I meet the guy in the Bronx where I lived, and he shows up with two guns. They were both 32s. One was a semi-automatic, and one was a revolver. And the one that he gave me was just like some piece of shit, rusty piece of shit thing. I never tested it. I checked, it had rounds in it, and he had a revolver. And his friend had robbed this bank several times, and he said how easy it was. And so this bank was robbed a lot. The bank was on the corner of 14th Street and 2nd Avenue, right on the corner. And so we scoped it out. So the plan was, okay, I'm going to use my car. I had a 71 Chrysler 300 with a 440 in it. We're going to use my car, but I'm going to put stolen plates on it. So the stolen plate story was bullshit, but he thought that the plates on the car were stolen. And again, summertime, we got the mask on, the knit hats that turn into a ski mask. And we got them on, and I'm driving. We pull up to the bank, and what the plan was the first woman that walks in the bank, he's going to get out, and as soon as she goes into the bank, he's going to grab her, put the gun to her head, and I was going to come and jump the counter and do the whole bank. The FBI is set up in a furniture store across the street on 14th Street, and they're working in conjunction with the New York City Police Department, but not the individual precinct. So I'm parked on 2nd Avenue, to the left of 2nd Avenue. 2nd Avenue, I think, goes north. And I'm parked right in front of the bank, and the bank is on the corner of 14th Street and 2nd Avenue. And the both of us are in the car, and we're waiting for a woman to go into the bank. And he's going to jump out, grab her, put the gun to the head, and hold her hostage. That was the plan. So we're sitting there, and out of the blue, a cop, a brand new cop. How did I know he was a brand new cop? His holster was brand new, shining. His uniform was just like it just came, never went through one wash cycle. The shoes were new, the hat, the badge was shining. He comes walking from the east side of 14th Street, walking west, and he comes walking, and he looks at us as he's slowly walking, and you could see the look on his face. Oh, fuck. Look at these two idiots. And I'm sitting there, and nobody planned for that. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to me, the New York City cops that were working with the FBI immediately called Central. Now, Central is the hub of all radio transmissions in New York City. If a cop that works in the 6th precinct, his call sign will be 6 Mary to Central K. So anyway, so they're already working on it. But this kid, 21 years old, is walking towards us, and he's getting panicking, and his hand goes on his gun. He was right-handed. His weapon was on his right side, and so we can't see it. And I'm going, holy shit. And then idiot over here goes, fuck it, I ain't going back. I'm going to blow his fucking brains out. That's what he tells me. Now, I got this piece of shit gun. Now, I know once he lifts that gun, that cop is going to take aim, and he's going to shoot the both of us dead right in the thing. There's no way that he's going to miss. There's just no way. So I have the dilemma. Now, I have a big dashboard. It was a Chrysler 300, and it was a big car, and he lifts the gun from his waist, and I have the piece of shit. I don't even know if the thing works. So I grab the top of his hand, the gun, and I'm holding the cylinder. I'm thinking if I hold the cylinder, he won't be able to pull the trigger. It's not cocked. He won't be able to pull the trigger. I got the gun, and now I'm saying, I'm going to shoot this guy, because once he waves that gun, that cop is going to shoot us, you know. So I got it, and I got the gun, and I cock it, and he's looking at the cop, and I'm ready to shoot him. And then, of course, I'm thinking, hey, am I going to jail for this? Well, we had no wires. There was no recording statements. There was no wire running on my body or in the car. And so finally, the cop takes the walkie-talkie out, and I can hear him running the plate. It was FMJ 162, I think. And I'm reading his lips, and he's doing the same thing. He's running the plate right in front of us, got his hand on his gun, got the walkie-talkie like this. And apparently they said, get out of there. Get out of there. Because all of a sudden, when, you know, I knew, of course, I couldn't hear what Central was telling the foot patrol cop. To just get out, keep walking. And I'm still holding the gun. I'm saying, calm down, don't do nothing. And then all of a sudden his demeanor changes, and he starts walking slower. And he's crossing the street like he wanted to do something. He wanted to shoot us. He wanted to grab us. But they kept telling him, and I learned later that they were screaming at him. The New York City cop was telling Central, tell him to move, and they're relaying all of this, And finally the cop walks out of view, and this idiot, just like the other idiot, now it's time to go, but I didn't give a shit. Let's rob the bank, because I knew the second he stepped out of the car and touched that door, he was going to get grabbed. And that, of course, is exactly what happened. And that's what it's like robbing a bank for the FBI. And, of course, I got paid, and they arrested the both of us. And it made the New York Times, I think it was October 26th, 1976, October 27th. The headlines read, Kevin Maher and William Hand got arrested for robbing the bank on 14th Street. And then I not only got money from the FBI, I also got money from the bank whose name escapes me. So those are the two things that I want to just hit on right now. And then on this vlog, we're going to put this all together much better. Please have patience with me. This is the first time I did anything like this. It's certainly not the first time that I told my stories, but this is the first time on camera. And so we're gonna end this one now. Thanks for viewing my new channel, and I really appreciate it. Peace.